Folks, I know I haven't been on for a while due to health issues, but I came across this yesterday, and I just had to take the time to do my research and then to make this video. If you have not, I repeat, if you have not seen this particular report, Tactics and Tropes of the Internet Research Agency, you need to read it, okay? You need to read it. I took the time yesterday to read the report, and honestly, folks, if you're going to read it in 30-minute clips. Don't try to read the whole report at the same time, because you will basically get bored if you're not really interested in the topics that they're discussing. Excuse me. And you will also not be able to retain the information. I happen to have read it in our clips, and I went back over certain sections just to make sure that I understood exactly what was going on. The report has to do with the Russians and how they attacked the American democracy. Now, a couple of things that I just wanted to get out of the way. One, black people are under attack, not only by people in this country, but it looks like in this particular instance, the Russians. So I've created a couple of rules in order to stop some of this as far as attacks on myself. People, we need to understand, nobody gets elected in this country unless black people make that determination. I say that because when black people vote and vote in numbers, even the white supremacists cannot stop the person that we're voting for to obtain office. When black people don't vote and just let whatever happens happen, bad things happen to us. So what I'm going to do is, whenever someone makes a comment on my videos or on my YouTube page or on my other social network pages, if they state that our vote is meaningless, I am going to block them and remove their comments, because I will consider them to be either Russian bots or agents of the Russians. It cannot be clearer. It cannot be clearer that the black vote makes the decisions as to who is elected in this country. The report that I'm referring to analyzes what happened in 2016 and further back as far as the Russians getting into our social networks. That's Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, etc. They actually got into all of them. And they started creating websites, phony personas, etc. In order to attack black people. Now, black people weren't the only ones that they had targeted, but the report, and again, I urge you to go in and just to at least scan the report. You will see that it is black people that they went after primarily. And it was black people who they pretty much had the most success with, if you're going to talk about on a percentage basis. Folks, the last election was won by Donald Trump with the help of the Russians. It cannot be clearer. in the report, you can see all of the phraseologies that they used, all of the videos that they made, all of the things, targets that they attacked. And you can see that Donald Trump said and attacked all of the same targets. When Donald Trump went to, I believe it was Helsinki, and met with Vladimir Putin, and both of them were on stage, and Putin was asked who he wanted to win the election. He stated without pausing that he wanted Donald Trump to win the election. And if you know anything about Vladimir, it's that whatever he wants that's within his power, he gets. And he directed various Russian agencies in order that they attack the American democracy and specifically target black people. Now again, gays were targeted with quasi little effect. White supremacists were targeted with major effect as far as getting them out on the side of Donald Trump and voting for Donald Trump. Okay, your progressives were attacked in the form of suggesting that instead of voting for Hillary Clinton, that they vote for Jill Stein. Various things. But black people were attacked left, right, up, and down. They were attacked in three ways. One, they were attacked using police brutality, which in fact is real, to indicate to us that the whole system is corrupt, which it is, okay. But we've learned to live pretty much within the system. Number two, we were attacked by stating that our vote didn't mean anything and that we should stay home and not vote. And number three, we were attacked by stating that if we did want to vote, that we should vote for Jill Stein. We were also given misinformation as far as the ability to vote online, which is a lie. We were given erroneous voting dates, etc. Now, the three major areas that they chose to specifically attack as far as geography is concerned were the states of Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania. You could also throw in Florida, but the effect there was not as pronounced as the three states that I mentioned. Now, looking at those three states, Donald Trump won those three states by a grand total of 70,000 votes. 70,000 votes, three states. I claim that the Russians were successful in rigging the election because if you look at the historic numbers of black voters in those three states, Michigan's number of votes was depressed by 50,000 over historic numbers. Wisconsin's votes, black votes now, were depressed by 50,000, and Pennsylvania's number of votes were depressed by 35,000. Folks, that's 135,000 votes. More than enough for Donald Trump to have lost the election. Now, I'm not using those numbers in relationship to Barack Obama's numbers because his numbers were historically high. But that's a given since he was the first black man actually running for the presidency of the United States as far as in the general election. I'm basing that on the historic average, which, although it does somewhat include Barack Obama, it includes all of the other white male candidates from the Democratic Party that ran for president. So my numbers are not as skewed as some might want to believe. What has Donald Trump done? What have the Republicans, who I believe may not have been in active collusion, but their natural tendencies in order to suppress the black vote were amplified by the Russians? You see that in North Carolina, where they had to basically go to their state courts to overturn their voter suppression laws. You've seen it in Georgia. You see it in Florida. Now you're going to see it in Wisconsin again with the outgoing governor and the current legislature creating laws that are restricting early voting, taking it down from 6 weeks to 2 weeks. And by the way, it's going to be challenged. And you have the same situation in Michigan. Again, why so much effort if our votes don't matter? Apparently they do. Now this video is going to be a little choppy as I'm for this one I actually made some notes that I'm going to refer back and forth to. So bear with me for a second. All right, I had to pull up my notes. Now, the Russians created YouTube channels, various YouTube channels, and I'm going to basically comment, or at least let you know about the black YouTube channels that they created in order to target us. But you will be able to see some of the other channels that they created in order to go after other groups. Now, the YouTube channels that they created to go after us are Black Matters, Black to Live, Don't Shoot, Paul Jefferson, and Stop Police Brutality. Those are YouTube channels. There's a whole bunch of them, Guns for Life, etc., which they created to go after white supremacists and the right-wing people. Twitter was also involved. There are 3,841 accounts that were created by the Russians on Twitter that hit approximately 1.4 million people, okay, and they generated 72,000 engagements, okay, interactions, and the number of retweets was not provided. Now, let me roll back to Facebook, Instagram, which Facebook owns Instagram, and Twitter, and a couple of other social media networks, including Google. They knew what was going on, folks. They knew what was going on. And they did nothing, and I do mean nothing, to stop it during 2016. I say that because this particular study went back in and asked for all of the information that they needed in order to actually track this thing 100%. Twitter refused to give them retweets of the retweets, which Twitter can track. Facebook refused to provide them with likes and forwards. Okay, they gave them some information, but not all of the information, so that they would be able to track just how deeply this thing went. Same thing with Instagram. Now, for you black people, Facebook, quote unquote, is supposedly the largest social media system in the world, which it is. They also own Instagram. And for us black people, Instagram had a greater impact on us than Facebook did. There were a lot more interactions on these various black sites than there were on Facebook. And I have the numbers in here, and I'll pull those up in a second. Okay, you may not be able to see it, see if I can expand it somewhat. Now it'll take me too much time to do it. Anyway, I'll give you the numbers. The number of posts in 2016 for Facebook by the Russians during, I believe it was the month of November. I could be wrong about that. There were 61,000 posts on Facebook. On their Facebook account, they hit 3,334,202 followers on all of the Russian-generated Facebook accounts. On Instagram, there were 116,000 posts, which obviously Instagram is a little easier, I guess, than Facebook. But their interactions were 3,391,116. Those are black interactions, not overall interactions. Okay? So as you can see, based on the numbers, Instagram, as far as black people are concerned, had a greater impact than Facebook. Now, let me get to some of the whys and the wheres. Just how were the Russians so successful in getting into and onto Facebook and some of the various social media companies, websites? Well, remember a company by the name of Cambridge Analytica that is no longer in business? Well, that company was tied to the Russians, and Facebook had allowed them access into their systems because they were quote unquote developers. And the developers, once they got into their systems, they had pretty much free reign in collecting data. And they had been doing that for a couple of years. So they were well able to develop their strategies, targets, and analytics in order to go after the people that they wanted to go after. So that just lets you know, folks, that this wasn't a fly-by-night idea that was implemented. This strategy by the Russians to attack America, and specifically black people, had been formulated over years. Not days, not months, not a year, years. And it went as far back as 2015. And again, I ask that you go in and take a look at that report. And if you basically just don't want to read it, and I'm telling you, it's a lot of reading, just go in and look at the diagrams, and you can see a bunch of stuff that was pointed out as far as targeting us. And those same targets are the targets that Donald Trump specifically attacked. Donald Trump continues to this day to talk about voter suppression. Where's the voter suppression taking place? Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, Wisconsin, Texas, etc. Okay? That's where a lot of the voter suppression is going on. That's where a lot of the attacks are going on. Pretty much a lot of the mimes and a lot of the statements that Donald Trump makes when he attacks, those are the same statements that are made by the IRA. Obviously, if there is not collusion there, there is a synergy there. They both, before the 2016 election occurred, had the same goal, and that goal was to get Donald Trump elected. So I don't know what Mueller is going to come out with as far as his proof of collusion, but it's easy to see that with all the Russians circling around the Trump campaign and all of the interactions of Trump's people with the Russians, the Russians were in there, and it's just a question of how deep. The NRA is in deep shit right now because the Russian $30 million that they contributed to the Trump campaign in various forms. Whereas in 2012, when Romney ran, they only contributed $10 million worth of aid to the Romney campaign. And since they've contributed that $30 million, there are various articles and their own statements that they are now in financial distress. So now they're being investigated to find out where that $30 million came from. And God help them if it was the Russians that snuck that money in there. They were already infiltrated by a Russian asset, a Russian agent, who has pleaded guilty to being a Russian agent and is now cooperating. So we're going to see where that is going to roll. But again, folks, if you see images like this on websites, those were Russian created images. The Black Matters website is a Russian creation. And those three are the insignias. When you see various other entities, which I'm going to see if I can pull the list up again, the complete list of the ones that the Russians created, you have to be aware. The Russians were insidious. They went as far as to advertise black businesses, legitimate black businesses, on their websites, trying to give themselves legitimacy. We had various groups, black groups, that were legitimate, that were also fooled to the point that they were advertising on their own websites the links to a bunch of these Russian created entities. Now, when I specifically refer to Black Matters, it consists of a website and an extensive network of linked social profiles. The IRA launched Black Matters on June 8, 2015 with a post on a Facebook page they initially called BM, facebook.com/Black Matters. Other social presences for Black Matters included Black Matters on Google, Google ads, 31 ads for blackmattersus.com, 95 YouTube videos, facebook.com/Black Lives, as well as blackmatters.mvmt, various Facebook ad stickers, Instagram at Black Matters US that had 28,000 followers and 1.9 million interactions. Twitter, it had 5,841 followers, which doesn't sound like a lot until you consider the tweets, retweets that are constantly flowing through that we can't track. And they were also on SoundCloud. Now, the Russians were actively trying to recruit actual people to help with their, agenda. And there were constant requests for people to contact them with the names of preachers from black churches, offering free counseling to people with sexual addictions. That was targeted more towards white Christians. Soliciting volunteers to hand out flyers, soliciting black volunteers to teach self-defense classes, offering free self-defense classes. That was done on a website by the name of BlackFist/FitBlack. Requests for followers to attend political rallies, requests for photographers to document the protest, requests for speakers at the protest. They also requested attorneys, and they really went after black women because they wanted female followers to send photos for a calendar so that they could use that on various websites and web pages that they created. They even went so far as to attempt to create a show for black people that had been discriminated against, but you had to send a picture and also full details on what the discrimination was. These guys went so far as to create merchandise lines. As you can see there, there are various logos, and I don't know if you can see the actual pictures of the logos themselves. That's why I direct you to the actual article or the actual report itself, because I don't want to take the time to go through and start increasing font sizes, etc. But there you have a black man right there with a picture, join our team, Black Matters US, and with the various logos on the right. Now, I had mentioned earlier about them advertising for actual black businesses, and the picture you see there has the caption, which one, as in which color, is actually nude. Most women will basically pick a color that's somewhere down towards the left side of the picture. But the actual answer is all of those colors are actually nude, because those are the pictures of black women's legs without stockings. By definition, their legs are nude. So every last one of those pictures is a picture of the color description nude. Now, I said that they actually advertised on legitimate black businesses. That particular picture was an advertisement for a black-owned leather goods company by the name of Kahmune. That's Kahmune, and that thing showed up on Instagram all over the place, and it basically generated 303,663 followers. And again, it had the caption, "What is your color?" Okay. It had the highest engagement on Instagram, as well as the most likes, 254,179, and comments, 6,734. It was posted on June 11, 2017, which obviously the elections were 2016, so that just means that the Russians continued to interact on our social media networks and continue to target black people. Now, again, Instagram has been a major target or source for the targeting of black people by the Russians. And this is just an example of what continues to happen. Now, the picture you see here is a picture of a black child on the right, and I believe that's a Syrian child on the left. The Russians continue to target the black people by indicating that when we try to help Syrian refugees, etc., Syrian children, that we shouldn't do that because we as black people have enough problems here, and all the help that the country gives should be directed towards us rather than the Syrian refugees. Well, again, help is help, and in my opinion, both can be helped, but doing wrong is doing wrong, and we should basically help everybody we can. Who should go first? Well, actually, I believe that since we're citizens, we should go first, but that does not preclude us from, as a country, from trying to help other people. But all that is an attempt to divide us as far as black people from white people and everybody else that believes that the Syrian issue is a major problem and that we should help. Now, if you are anywhere near as active as I am on the internet, you saw these particular pictures. Well, folks, guess what? Again, these are pictures that and mimes of the creation of the Russians. Okay? Real Lady Liberty, black woman, fake Lady Liberty, Statue of Liberty, Mozart was black. These were created by the Russians for their own purposes. And now I know I saw them. I saw a bunch of various things. Now, don't get me wrong. Again, white people on the left and the right were targeted as well. There was a major attack against John McCain because of his anti-Russian opinions. Robert Mueller, who is investigating Trump right now for collusion with the Russians, has under severe attack. During the election and prior to the election, Donald Trump was boosted up with the right-wing people, white supremacists, etc. Hillary Clinton was shot down in a major way on the progressive or left side of the equation, along with the black community and Hispanic and Asian communities as their targets. And there were a lot, and I do mean a lot, of advertisements that they created. And I'm looking at one right now, swing over to it, on the lower left, that black man, I won't vote, will you? That was one of their three major campaigns to stop black people from voting. And again, if you were going to vote, right below it, you see vote for Jill Stein. That was pumped into our communities incessantly for months, just to knock down the number of votes for Hillary Clinton, which translates into increasing the percentage of votes for Donald Trump. And again, geographically targeted. I cannot tell you how many arguments I got into with people online, okay, on my various videos that was stating emphatically that our votes were meaningless and that we shouldn't vote. And voting for anyone in the election was basically voting to support our captors. Look, if you don't vote, you are putting your destiny into someone else's hands. And obviously you could see that with what's going on right now with Donald Trump. Okay, folks, I know I've made this overly long and I apologize for it, but there's a lot of information that is in that report that I just can't go into detail on. And I felt it would be a disservice just to concentrate on one particular area. But I will say this, the social media companies knew about this, okay? And it got so bad that they even had to do something. Now, if you recall, back in January of this year, two of the, I call them collaborators, Diamond and Silk, claimed that their website had been blocked on Facebook. And they were right. Why were they blocked? They were blocked because of the pro-Trump, anti-Clinton rhetoric that they had been spewing. Well, they testified in front of Congress that, quote unquote, their right to free speech, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and that started talking about black people being on the Democratic plantation, all of that normal crap. Well, this report specifically mentioned them as basically being tools of the Russians, of the IRA. So Facebook actually was right to block their webpage, but Facebook relented because of the quote unquote free speech issues and reopened their page. But Diamond and Silk are collaborators with the Russians. Don't believe me? Read the report. We were under such attack from various directions that it just basically can't really be given the proper due that it deserves in my description in this video. But again, I'm going to put a link in here for you to take a look at the report yourself. So the next time somebody tells you that your vote is meaningless, you tell them to go to hell. No matter who, if you want to vote for Trump, fine, that's your business. Vote. You want to vote for whoever's running against Trump in 2020, if he runs, and hopefully his ass is in jail by that point. He might not be in jail, but he will hopefully will be out of office by that point. You know, go ahead and do so. That's your choice. But don't let anybody tell you that your vote doesn't matter. And this is a two-party system. So cast your vote in something that's going to matter. That is either for the Democratic nominee or the Republican nominee. Anybody else is basically wasting your vote, or in my opinion, voting for the greater of two evils if the candidate that is going to do the best for our country gets defeated. Thanks very much, and I hope to get back to you soon.